Andrew Silver, Freight Prodigy, is running the hottest brokerage in Chicago. K&L Freight doubles down on data analytics and financial services. Autonomous vehicles, crowdsourcing, drones, and yes, even humans are all seeking a place at the last mile table. Authenticating the supply chain, Bonify's blockchain solution to counterfeiting. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we discuss all these issues and more on this week's episode of What the Truck.
I thought you'd never get through that.
Yeah, that was...
Wow.
That's 5 headlines, right?
No, it's 4, but there's very multisyllabic.
Wordy headlines.
Yeah. Whoa, look at the amber color of my Rocktoberfest.
From Hutton and Smith.
That's right.
The geology-themed Chattanooga brewery.
They've now become, I have to say, they've won me over. They're my new favorite brewery in Chattanooga.
Well, I've got something that just wins me over week to week. Bell's Too Hard a Ale.
Shocker!
Out of Comstock, Michigan. It's the yang to your yin. Is
that what it is?
It's the center around which the entire solar system orbits.
It is the center of your universe, clearly, JP. And it's great to be here with you as we circumnavigate the universe of freight.
I see what you did there.
Oh, thanks. That was a good transition, right? And a couple of really cool articles of yours again this week as you kind of, perambulate. Is that a good word?
Yeah,
as
walking
you,
around.
Make your way through various
industries,
various players in the industry,
right?
Whether they're brokerages, or freight forwarders, or what have you. Cool startups in the freight industry, and I really thought that this was a cool, like a couple of podcasts ago, we did a human interest piece of sorts when we featured Kelvin Beecham, one of FreightWaves investors, the Jets' offensive tackle. Maybe gives some people a little bit of a reason to cheer for the Jets this year. But this is a human interest piece of sorts. Kind of.
So,
Andrew Silver's Freight Prodigy.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to talk to Andrew Silver. Yes, that Andrew Silver, the son of Jeff Silver, the founder of Coyote Logistics.
Yeah.
Who started Coyote.
Started it
in 2006, sold it in 2015 to UPS for $1.8 billion.
That's billion with a B.
Yeah. Hugely respected guy in the industry. Really kind of, he was, like Paul Loeb, one of the executives from American Backhaulers. Anyway, Andrew, he's a cool kid, right? He's 28 years old.
Sounds really cool.
Graduated from college about 6 years ago. Started brokering loads at Coyote. Christmas break of 2006 when he was still in high school. He was 16 years old.
You said at the tender age of 16, which I thought was kind of funny. Tender.
And so now, he worked for Coyote up until they sold to UPS. Took a break working for a shipper, tendering loads on the shipper side, while his non-compete was in play. Now that it's over, he joined up with a fellow U of M alum,
right?
Matthew Vogrich, who actually played basketball at Michigan.
A little bit, right?
Well, I mean, he won the Sixth Man Award.
Whoa!
Yeah. He was
played a good bit.
Yeah, he was a good contributor to the team. Had a lot of positive things to say about John Beeline. But anyway, it was cool. I was actually at Michigan when Silver was there. As a grad student.
Yeah. I wanted to add too that just this is your piece, you tell us give us the overview, but I wanted to say in reading your article, there was this infectious kind of enthusiasm and passion that you get from reading about
Silver and Vogrich.
Andrew Silver.
Yeah.
And just this I almost wish that early on I had been able to find like sort of an industry that I was like, so passionate about from a competitive point of view.
Yeah.
The way that it sounds like he did.
I know. It sounded so fun and so energetic. They like literally were saying like, our mission is to outwork everyone else in the industry. Our motto comes from Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh. Attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Which is hard to do.
It's hard to do, but they basically said like we're the most competitive people you'll ever meet, and where they really.
And yet I like the new way that Molo is approaching their competitive spirit.
Yes, exactly. They're not channeling this into ripping off carriers or gouging their customers. What they're doing, they're saying
working their employees 70 hours a week or nothing like that.
Yeah, no. What it's all about is just giving an unprecedented level of service and saying like if we say that we will cover a load, it will be covered. They're a year old. They did over $20 million of revenue in the first year. They're on a run rate to do $70 million in their second 12 months.
I don't think they've lost a customer yet.
They haven't lost a customer.
Drivers with this huge respect.
Yeah, and Silver like knows that, he was talking when he was talking to me. He was like, look, I get pissed if I'm at an airport and my flight gets delayed by an hour. Yet in our industry, a broker will mistype a number and some driver will be sitting in detention for 10 hours and then the broker won't want to pay. He's like, it's infuriating, the lack of respect. He's like, we want our drivers and our carriers to love hauling for us so much that they only want to haul for us. And so they have a driver.
It's an interesting business model.
And there's a couple of interesting parts about it. Like, so they have created this driver loyalty program where the more loads you haul for, for Molo, the more perks you get, which is everything from like free equipment, like tires and things like that, to all different kinds of perks with other corporate partners. And they also Silver was saying that they've changed the incentive structure for their brokers so that it prioritizes service. So that, the broker, when they're faced with, a truck that doesn't show up and they have this moral dilemma about whether to register a service failure or to, go the extra mile and get that load covered, that's what they're trying to do. And so, I thought it was super interesting. They have a really, it's a really fast growing company. They're backed by, I think, a substantial group of investors that's allowing them to essentially
have a little room to grow. I mean, they don't even need it. They're nailing it,
Well, I mean, so top line revenue is growing a lot. They're not profitable yet.
But they anticipate it in the coming year, don't they?
And what they're trying to do basically right now is like in this capacity constrained environment, when it's really hard to find trucks and there's a lot of service failures on the broker side, they're coming in and saying, no, like we got you. They're coming to the shippers and saying, we got you. Like, we'll take care of you. We will not fail. We'll honor our word. Yeah. And so they're still, it's this part of the cycle is a chance for them to really steal a lot of shipper customers.
And a big deal, and I think this will also apply to our next K&L story to some extent, but from within, the culture that they're building within, the human element that I also gathered was that, a lot of brokerages, that you get a desk, a computer, and a phone and are told to get to work, as Silver, told you. A lot of people obviously burn out from that because they just do the same thing over and over.
Right.
And they're not growing. And he said, the joke is you'll spend 10 years in the industry, leave, and the only thing is how much it costs to move a truck from Chicago to Atlanta.
Right, which is great for us because we hire ex-brokers to help explain the freight markets to our audience.
Yeah,
but in terms of like,
doesn't sound like a very good way to.
In terms of and they're ex-brokers, right? They do it for 4, 5, 6, 7 years and they're done. They really believe in investing in their people. They give them like personal, sort of like public speaking training.
Yeah,
they try to develop like more skill sets and really, it's try to get them away from just being locked into this transactional mindset.
Well, in terms of, that's a fascinating story, and we encourage you to check it out on FreightWaves as always. Another interesting, not really a human interest piece exactly, but another brokerage is that you covered recently, K&L Freight.
Yeah, so
an interesting...
They're not just a brokerage. They have a brokerage arm. They started off as an expedited freight forwarder.
Yes, it's complicated. That's kind of why they're the diamond in the rough.
They added logistics. They actually have tractors that, tractor trailers that move freight.
Whoa.
They added air cargo. But really, what I found so fascinating about K&L is that they are the rare 20-year-old transportation company that can succeed in completely reinventing itself with technology and data. You really don't see that. You see incumbent companies running based on we
talk about them all the time,
based on the experience and the instincts of their executive team, and then you see sort of digital startups who are trying to disrupt things by leveraging technology and doing things differently. It's kind of divided.
Yeah.
What you don't see is an incumbent company completely changing. But that's what they did. They brought in some data consultants that eventually became full-time people that they added to their C-suite, and they grew 5x. They grew 5x in the past 2 years based on what the data was telling them. They are avid sonar evangelists. They love sonar. And what's interesting about the way that they use the metrics in sonar is that it's not just about operationalizing it for themselves. They also use it to enhance their customer relationships. So like their brokers will go to a shipper and say, hey, based on the turndown rates in this market, we think you might run into some trouble in the week coming up. We're here for you. Let us know how it's going. We're happy to help any way you can. Any way we can. So like, they're kind of using the data, for themselves, but also to keep their customers informed and to establish those closer, more collaborative partnerships, which I thought was like so impressive.
Very, very unusual.
The other super interesting thing and super unexpected, and I think the most groundbreaking thing that K&L is doing is that they actually hired a futures trader from the Chicago Board of Trade to help develop their business model for when FreightWaves and Nodal and DAT's Freight Futures Exchange launches.
Sounds surprisingly visionary.
Yeah. I was like, what? Like, wow. Like,
yeah.
And what they want to do, they sort of recognize, they think that they think that it's completely viable. They think that, the size of the market, the volatility, the way that the volatility hurts both sides, makes it really conducive to establishing a futures market. But they're kind of saying, like, we know that these shippers aren't necessarily going to be comfortable participating in this financial exchange. So what we're going to do is provide advisory services to our customers. They hired a software engineer from NASA to build these models showing, okay, say, you're a shipper customer, you run in these lanes. We're going to model exactly which of the futures contracts you should buy and how many of them to hedge against spot rate volatility. We'll advise you how to do that, and we'll also handle the transactions for you. So they actually want to be like a major liquidity provider for the Freight Futures Exchange. Really smart dudes. Like they have like a partner. They have like doubled down and tripled down on data, technology, and these really sophisticated services. It's such an interesting area of growth and such an interesting way for a transportation company to reimagine itself and to find, hockey stick growth in an unexpected sector.
Data analysts, NASA engineers, freight futures.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I know. And this company was literally founded by a truck driver in 1997. And he still owns it. He's still the president. And he's just open-minded enough to like listen to these young people and listen to the data. Yeah,
and it sounds like for them it is all happening. Well, we have another story that we're covering.
Yeah, Brian, why don't you tell us about Brian Strait, our managing editor's story about sort of the continuing evolution. I kind of think of this story as sort of a roundup or a panorama of the cutting edge last mile landscape. Right.
Yeah, I guess so. So I mean, because he does allude to a number of things in a recent McKinsey report, which it's what are we going to do with last mile? Last mile is still shaking itself out. What are consumers demanding, and what seems reasonable?
Right.
One of the things that I think is interesting are that 70% of consumers are content to receive their goods in the cheapest form possible still,
right,
while 23%, a fair minority but a fair size, are willing to pay more for same day delivery.
Supposedly, if I can just interject, supposedly Amazon has hit the sweet spot in that by saying we'll give you 2-day for free. But I think the sort of word on the street now is that isn't really sustainable.
Not only is it, to me, kind of not sustainable, I don't even think they've perfected it. I see it as being a sweet spot, right. 2-day shipping. But as you and I have talked about, they don't, Amazon, as efficient and gigantic as they are, we've talked about it, they do hit their mark in the mid to high 90th percentiles of consistency, except for during last holiday season where they missed it by 10%.
Right. And UPS and FedEx were worse.
But hey, it's still a pretty high rate and it's still pretty cool. But, I think the biggest trends right now are, obviously, I guess, as this is a roundup, they're the way and speed at which goods are being delivered.
Right.
And one of the things, though, I think that we're, that one of the talking points is is it the effect to which drones are going to be a part of the story?
Yeah,
you and I have recently talked about this. We've had we
had a really interesting conversation with Britton Ladd, who's a sort of a retail expert about this.
Yeah,
what did he say?
He's a fascinating dude. He was saying things like, he was strong about drones. He was like drones. He was like what about weather? What about when it's freezing? What about when it's too hot? Where are these batteries going to recharge? On top of stoplights, some people say? No. Stoplights are moving. It'll be a distraction. And what about wind? What about when it goes over 25 miles an hour? They're going back and forth. There's no way. They'll crash. And what about when they crash? And just, on and on. And all of these things, suddenly you're like, whoa, these are very good points.
Right.
And the current drone technology, such as we're looking at, are these, what did you call them? You said it's called the 4 quads?
Yeah, quadcopters. Yeah, they're really they're actually fairly unstable. They can get blown around a lot.
They can only carry up to 5 pounds at a time. So that's a limit right there.
Which is fine for parcel delivery, most parcels. But,
but I just don't so part of the article that we're talking about, said, there's these there's the autonomous, the small little vehicles could bring something up to curbside and then launch as many as 8 of these drones to go 1 to 2 miles. And actually, okay, maybe that is a corrective to some of Britton Ladd's critiques to some extent. Right. What if if it's literally last mile or two? Because this is a term we use, last mile.
Yeah.
But what if literally you had a general area or a van ports or whatever it is, and releases. I guess.
And as far as the weather goes, you can always say it's not available for the next hour.
Right. Good point.
During this rainstorm,
so within given limitations of wind variables and that are in the vast majority of climates and situations.
What I think is interesting, though, about drone delivery is that one of the most successful use cases that I'm aware of is Zipline in Rwanda, which is using fixed wing planes, not quadcopters, to deliver blood to rural hospitals in Rwanda. And so the idea is like, okay, you're delivering a high value cargo that's very time sensitive in a rural area with very limited infrastructure.
And you know what?
The problem is that they have these roads that get washed out. These mountain roads that get washed out, and it takes like 4 hours each way to get blood to these hospitals. 8 hours. So by the time, it's not effective for an emergency surgery. And if that's the current use case that's really working and makes sense, why do you need drones in a city with density, with infrastructure? For non-valuable, non-time critical goods, like, oh, I ordered a book on Amazon. It's like
a book. I mean, like, what about what kind of other goods could we be talking about?
I don't know. That's the main thing I order.
I mean, I don't know that I would want my guitar getting flung through the air. You know what I mean? There's a lot of...
exactly.
But one of the points too, I've seen these things, and you're talking about like they're winged and they're cool, and yes, they could be a solution for a lot of things. But the kind of general kind of commodity we're talking about getting from Amazon, no, we're not zip lining these. No, like those things are big. They got the wings. They're gigantic. This is not the last mile delivery solution. That's all I'm saying.
No. It's definitely not the last mile.
It's a great thing.
But it also, the reason I brought it up is because I think it raises questions about whether drones, like broadly conceived, are actually useful in dense urban areas for non-time critical packages.
Well, what does non-time critical mean to you? Like, I mean,
we're
talking about all this, like, same day, 2 day,
if someone,
non-time, hey.
But a drone is like, I need it in the next hour.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, but what do you actually need that for? Like, you need that if someone's on an operating table and they need a blood transfusion.
No,
But you don't need it if you're just like, oh,
if I wanted to
I need a light bulb.
Let's say I want to play wiffle ball with my kids, and I'm like, I want to go get a bat and some wiffle balls, and we want to go do, and like I could drive to the Walmart, or I could just be like, you know what, guys, let's order it on Amazon and let's just let that delivery get here. We'll hang out and chill. It'll be here in a little while. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about.
You're gonna pay a lot for that. I think you're gonna have to pay a lot for that.
That might be worth it if the cost of gas goes up and I'm having to drive several miles. What if that fee is $5 or $10? Yeah,
it could be worth it. Yeah,
you
go ahead.
Totally
you have dinner and then the wiffle ball is ready after that.
Yeah, things like that. That would be cool. So that's time. That's time critical. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Because if it was another hour, then daylight's running out. We can't play the wiffle ball.
Right.
We could have gone to Walmart and gotten the goods.
Right.
Or wherever.
Or you could play tomorrow night.
No, because that maybe every company's going out of town. Everything's situational.
I feel you. Yeah.
All right. So we digress, sort of. Okay. Well,
wiffle ball and blood transfusions, the two sort of poles
time critical things.
Of drone delivery freight.
Well, speaking of awesomeness in technology, we have a kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
We discovered this blockchain startup. They started up this very year.
Oh, really?
January. It's listed as January 1st, 2018.
Ooh.
Bonafide. I think it's Bonafide, like bona fide.
Yeah.
It's Bonafide. And the reason that I feel like this is a big deal is not that a startup that hasn't even quite gone into their first round of funding is yet is a big deal, even though their team is they've got credentials.
Really?
They're industry experts. The 9 people on their team so far have an average of 18 years experience in the industry. An average
of logistics,
just all the different like variables of all the things they're touching on, which addressing how to build their crypto tag tokens, and just understanding the finances and all of the different aspects that they're touching on. It's pretty impressive, and but the big deal is that they're trying to be a solution via blockchain for a gigantic issue, and that is counterfeiting of goods. Do you know how much is counterfeited annually? Of just like goods,
I mean, I would say billions of dollars, because it's high. It's always high end.
It's billions.
It's always high end stuff. It's always haute couture, fashion.
Those do fall into this.
Premium
Pharmaceuticals is the biggest.
Oh,
that's $200 billion alone in pharmaceuticals. Yeah,
are counterfeited every year.
Yes.
Wow.
And overall, it's over $500 billion. It's $500 billion.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It's it's gigantic, and 85%. This is all verifiable. 85% of it, unfortunately, does come from China. It doesn't only come from China, but 85% of these goods do come from China. And guess what? The U.S. is hit the hardest. Yeah. Why?
Because we have it's the biggest bilateral trade relationship in the world.
Well,
US and China.
Yeah, that's true. But also just because we're the biggest consumeristic, country in the world.
And us and China are tight.
We've got a thing. Maybe there is a little bit of a relationship
despite what the Trump administration.
The tariffs thing.
Well, maybe they have a point.
They do. I was going to say, I forget. But Bono, so they're looking to be a solution for this, and it's fascinating, all the different aspects that this ties into.
I know, even like wine and like liquor.
Oh yeah,
any kind of like
you said, fashion as well, like Nike, Gucci. It could be
fast apparel, and like even like consumer goods. Like they make like fake iPhones,
and often consumers, we don't realize that we've been hit with something counterfeit until we receive the good. And so the long and short of this is that, they're trying to come up with a solution in which you would be able to, the crypto tag. They're talking about something it's unique. It's a unique tag. They're talking about like we could put a unique tag. The manufacturer would be inclined. They would be incentivized. They want to motivated to do this, because they would put a tag on their product because they want to be able to verify it to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so they would put this encrypted type of authentication code.
Right.
That's like a blockchain type of thing.
And you like take a picture with your phone, and then it verifies or something like that.
I don't know about take a picture of it, but it would just be this unduplicatable code.
Right.
Now there's a lot of codes. There's RFCs, and there's like just normal barcodes, and there's other. But this would be supposedly.
It would probably be some sort of like hash.
It would be so difficult to copy that it would
fake.
that it wouldn't be worth the effort to try to copy it. So then you could verify.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
It kind of does. Now it is, it's the standard stuff you think about with blockchain companies of, they are going to start fundraising, and it is going to be a token. It's called a Bona token. And they're going to start fundraising in a week from now, and it's going to last for a year. And the Bona token, there's ways to get the Bona token and use it. And it's a part of the whole method of, will manufacturers give it to consumers for free to be able to start it? It seems like they're on the right track.
Yeah, and there's been some interesting ways that those tokens have developed. Like a lot of the times, like they'll accept like the payments and stuff will all be in normal currency, normal currencies like US dollars or Chinese yuan or whatever. But the token itself is just a utility token used to power the computations on the network. And so it's not like...
It does. The more I try to understand it, the as complicated and, I think people like, and schemy as people think that these things are, because they're like, oh, they too are going to be a cryptocurrency.
Right.
As it's not going to be as complicated as it sounds.
It's not really a currency. The token is just what moves back and forth on the network to make these transactions happen. To basically
more or less.
To basically allow, for example, allow people to check that this crypto tag is in fact legit. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with like, oh, I have to buy a bunch of this stuff to then pay someone, and I'm worried about the volatility of my Bona token, and whether it's going to be worth $1 or 5 cents or whatever. It doesn't really have much to do with that.
I agree. I think so. I think that much the way that you kind of explained recently, like when people use email, like, do they know that they're using IMAP technology or
POP3?
POP3, no, and we don't need to know, and we're just sending our emails,
right,
and in a certain sense, I think once this technology matures a little bit more,
it'll sort of recede into the background, and
techie things,
and users will be able to enjoy the benefits of it without having to worry about the technical details.
Exactly. And now we have the technical challenge of killing it again on
God.
Big Deal, Little Deal. What's the deal with you,
And
JP?
this week, Lexi Alvadrez, our other creative person.
Shout out to Lexi, doing a great job here.
So Silent Barry is in Floribama getting buffeted by Tropical Storm Gordon.
Hope he's having a great vacay.
Or at least its remnants. And Lexi is filling in for him as the What the Truck producer this week.
In fact, we're going to even talk about whether or not Tropical Storm Gordon was a big deal or little deal. Just stay tuned here and for another couple of moments.
Okay. So are you ready to time us, Lexi?
Okay, and be sure to give us a big applause or big buzzer if we don't make it. Okay, JP, as usual, beginning with you. So, starting now, Dallas, freight volumes drop, West Coast surges. Big deal or little deal?
I think it's a big deal. It'll be another week of hangover until we see exactly how much this plays out, but it looks like volumes in LA and Ontario, California are picking up.
xChange helps container lines cut expenses by reducing empty containers transit. Big deal or little deal?
It's a huge deal, but because we have to smooth out the head haul and back haul differentials in maritime. It's not gonna change international freight flows though.
Cargo X CEO, smart contracts reduced BOL transfer time to 4 minutes. Big deal or little deal?
I'd say it's a big deal, but my only question is, if you could get every member of the supply chain, every party of the transaction to adopt the same software, could you do this without the blockchain?
Deutsche Bank starts following 6 transport companies. E-commerce is a big factor in its ratings. Big deal or little deal?
It's a little deal, but I think it's somewhat important because it just shows increasing interest in the transportation sector, and hopefully these analysts will be able to explain these stocks better to retail investors. BNSF intermodal facility on hold as Port of Los Angeles and City ponder next move.
Big deal! The environmental impact report is going to slow the growth in one of our major ports during a capacity crunch.
Manufacturing activity surges to a 14-year high as producers shrug off tariff concerns.
Big deal! Ain't nothing going to slow down this economy.
1 year after Harvey, Tropical Storm Gordon threatens the Gulf Coast.
Little deal, it rained some.
Offshore wind power stations on the East Coast would bring in 25,000 jobs.
Big deal. The economy boost is one thing, but the beginning of our ability to harness wind off the coast is huge. Yes, I made it happen in spite of you going way over. Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Great job. Well, I mean, you're the closer. You're like the fourth person in the 4x100 relay. Like, you have to make up the time.
But hey, way to go. You don't even need notes. You're just improv, man.
Yeah, well, that's why I suck at it.
Not at all.
All right. Obviously, you can edit out that.
No, keep it. And that'll do it for the big stories this week. As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're interested in freight economics and finance, come to our MarketWaves conference at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine, Texas this November. Visit marketwaves18.com to learn more about this event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.